All right, friends, we are back. It's your favorite podcast of the week. It's Location Weekly. We're at episode number 590 this week. We're well into October. And how are you, Aubriana? What's going on?
I'm good. I'm busy. Been watching a little bit of baseball playoffs if I have a free moment. But yeah, it's just a crazy time. Obviously, we've got Retail Loco conference coming up. I've got Programmatic IO next week we're speaking at. So just, all over the place and trying to keep up with the family activities that the season brings as well. How about you?
Yeah, well, I was watching baseball playoffs until my Blue Jays got eliminated. Did you see the second game? It was ridiculous. Like, we had an 8-1 lead going into the seventh inning and lost 10-9. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Anyways, yeah. So other than that, though, we just had Thanksgiving, Canadian Thanksgiving was yesterday, so it was a long weekend here and lots of family and food and the normal things you do. So it was really lovely, and the weather's been beautiful, and all those fall colors on the leaves and all that kind of stuff. So can't complain, too much. And it's like gorgeous again today. It's like 21 degrees Celsius today here in Toronto. So
Beautiful. Well, happy Thanksgiving to you and all of our Canadian listeners as well.
yeah, yeah. So we have a good show for you this week. Four stories as usual to cover. And before we kick that off, I just want to remind you, as Aubriana alluded to, Retail Loco, our signature conference, is happening in person October 26th and 27th in Atlanta. So just 2 weeks from now, we will be down there. And there's so many great speakers. So check out the agenda. Just go to retaillo.co, retaillo.co. And you can sign up there and see all that's going on. And yeah, we'd love to see you in person. So, all right, on to our stories. Aubriana, you want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. So we have Mills is jumping on that brand AR wagon via Lucky Charms and their latest partnership with Niantic. So as most of you know, they are the creator of Pokemon GO. And so now with Lucky Charms, customers can visit, or even if you didn't purchase Lucky Charms, you can visit journeytothegems.com, or you can just scan the QR code if you are a Lucky Charms consumer. So it's on the Lucky Charms Magic Gems cereal box, which is a limited edition they put out this summer. Apparently it's sold out so fast, so now they are back with some more. And then you get to go participate at a local park. So the way that this works is like very similar to kind of a Pokemon Go. It's a search, it's an AR search, and players are prompted to find a magic gem, which then gives them the power of rainbow vision. You can see in the dark, navigate through all these dark places, and then the phone screen turns to dark mode and players can collect charms that are hidden all around. So there's also a sweepstakes that's part of this, which is part of the promotion to incentivize consumers to share their data, right? And you can still skip this and play. I was checking it out earlier because I noticed that our local park, just here on the block, is actually part of this. So I might, go check it out this weekend with the girls and see, how much fun they have with it, or if it's just something that is very short attention span, like most of the things, and they just go play at the park. But, we're seeing a trend here that I think is really interesting, and that is a lot of consumer products. We've seen Doritos, Nike, Cheerios are using AR as a way to engage consumers and to launch into loyalty, right? So they're launching into these loyalty programs. They're trying to capture data. And they're trying to get these like ongoing learners to drive further innovation around how they engage with consumers, probably how they produce products. And I think that's a very smart approach, right? You need to incentivize consumers to share data with you, to opt in, to become part of those loyalty programs. And I don't want to give away everything, but my next story coming up later, I would say, is also on trend with this. So I'll have a few more thoughts to add there, but let me pause. What do you think about this?
I think it's great. I think, as we've talked about the last couple of weeks with, Walmart getting into the metaverse and, with Playland and other things happening like this, I like that, some of these, sort of long-standing consumer brands, especially cereal brands and things like that, that, have always been, trying to put things in the box or on the box, or create experiences that kids want to engage beyond just consuming the actual food product. I think it's interesting. And what I love about this, as you know, is it's not just AR on its own. It's activated through physical locations, in this case parks. So encouraging people to get out and play, and be in their neighborhoods, and part of their communities. So I love that aspect of it. So anytime you can layer technology on top of the real world, and getting people out and about, I think it's a great thing. So and I think this is, I'm intrigued to see if you get to go do this weekend, kind of like what your girls think of it, because they're like sort of at that age of, sort of just everything's, a wonder, and the imagination and all of that aspect of things. So I love that piece of it. And so, yeah, and I think, we're seeing more and more brands, get on top of this sort of real world layer virtual world layer on top of physical world. And obviously Niantic and Pokemon GO have been at that for a little while now. So I like it.
Yeah. And if your kids are eating Lucky Charms, or if they're like mine, they're only eating the sugary marshmallows. So they definitely need to get outside and burn some energy.
Yeah. Alrighty, on to our second story now. So we're going to jump over to California, where there's a grocery store called Cooportunity Market. And so obviously they are a co-op grocery store, and there are thousands of these across the country. So they're an organic food cooperative in LA, and they've teamed up with a technology company called Focal Systems, and Focal has shelf cameras. And so this is sort of in that whole space of computer vision and AI, and we're seeing more and more of this now as well. They're calling it the self-driving store concept. And so they're testing this at two of their stores, one in Santa Monica, the other in Culver City. And essentially, what the cameras do is scan all the in-store inventory every hour, enabling the managers to sort of keep up to date on supply at all times. And so it's pretty interesting, that instead of having to do sort of manual inventory, or, having special shelves with, that have weighted sensors or things like that, they're using camera analytics to achieve that same thing. So it can, through the AI algorithms that they built with the camera technology, they can kind of tell when products are low, when items are out of stock, when certain perishable items are close to expiration. And then what's really cool is it then automates, based on that data, the ordering, of resupply items and things like that need to get done. And it can send out information and alerts to staff in the back room of any products that need to be pulled from shelves or restocked from the back room, or things like that. So I think this is super interesting. I think it's a great use case for computer vision technology. Obviously, you don't need to worry about privacy issues or things like that. We're talking about using this in a workplace environment to facilitate an easier operation, and a more accurate reading of what's going on in the store. So I think this is great, and they seem to be having good success with it, from what I've read from the articles that are out there. So I would love to see this in person. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's a great use of this technology, as you mentioned. And I think that we're trying to get to a place where we are smarter, that we are, I would say, empowering consumers who are shopping for goods at an optimum rate. And sometimes that's difficult, right? Especially when you think about all of the different boxes and cans and, items at a SKU level that are inside of a grocery store. And so I think being able to have that knowledge and just like awareness just is it's a super, I think, exciting way to apply this. And I feel like it will make the team members that are employees and managing these stores be so much more efficient, and be able to even focus a little bit more on the actual consumers that they're serving. So I like it.
Nice.
All right. So sticking on the loyalty program and kind of this data-driven partnerships, I am excited to talk about this one because we talked about Panera pretty recently on the show, more on, I think, like their drive-through program and loyalty program a little bit just a few weeks ago. But this week, we're back with a cross-brand partnership that they are launching via American Express. So Amex is now offering its consumers and users a 4-month subscription for free to Panera's unlimited Sip Club beverage program. So any consumers and corporate card members, that they are getting that for that limited time, right? Those 4 months. And so for Amex, obviously, it's an additional loyalty perk. They have lots of those. And for Panera, it's obviously driving, I would say like more reach, getting in front of an audience who potentially would not consider Panera at another time. And the massive amount of reach, that American Express has, there was over 56 million American Express cards in the US last year alone. So that's massive reach, obviously. And Panera being such a large chain, I think it's a valuable partnership for both of them. So they are also Panera's also offering these free subscription promotions, even to non-American Express users, like for, I think, a month or two or something, just to get consumers into the restaurant doors. So just saying that, they'll operate a little bit at a loss and in hopes of driving profit from other purchase items that they can come in and get. But what I think the story is really about for me is that data is a currency for brands, and we're seeing trends where these partnerships are driving that data sharing of their consumers. And I think they're really getting prepared for third-party data being less and less available, and that they're going to need to interact and engage with consumers in new and creative ways. So we're seeing this trend across so many different partnerships. And I think that, whenever there's not a direct conflict of interest, to be able to offer, Grubhub offering something to Amazon Prime consumers, or, just being able to drive more reach and relevance, and then having people opt in to share their data is really the way of the future. Because I know that there's going to be, cookieless future. We've seen the impact already that we're able to track in terms of advertising. So being able to do that across kind of this co-op, if you will, or, partnerships across different brands, I think is really what this is all about and the story is all about. So I think it's smart. I think loyalty, leading with loyalty and providing value to consumers is getting more consumers in your door, as well as getting that data that you need for the future. So that's my takeaway here. What do you think?
Yeah, so for me, don't want to add too much on this one, but I really like this kind of partnership, or is really like this trend that we're seeing around these sort of non-competitive, complementary brand, sort of partnership pieces, right? And I think what it speaks to, as you said, is yes, getting ready for sort of the loss of the data side of things, but I think on the other side of it, and what we see even like in my startup at Ground Level Insights, is a lot of retailers and a lot of brands that we're working with are interested to know, where bringing this back to location data point of view, like people who shop at Panera, where else do they go? What other brands are they spending, money and time at? Other competitive restaurants, other non-competitive brands, clothing stores, et cetera, et cetera. And if you can identify overlaps in your audience segments and your customer segments, then that can feed into who are the right partners that we should be building coalition loyalty programs with, or those kinds of things. So we're seeing a lot of that right now in the work that we're doing, and I think it's feeding into what we're seeing here, whether it's Panera and American Express, or IHOP, but doing Xbox partnerships, or whatever the case might be. We're seeing more and more of that. So I think that's a good thing, and I think it's a privacy-friendly way to recognize, who your customers are and what your customers are interested in.
Absolutely.
So, all right, final story. Speaking of privacy, we're going to talk a little bit about the California Privacy Act. So not so much a news story. Obviously, there's, this has been out there for a while. Some of the new rules are set to be implemented next year. So we're, as we're rolling in towards the end of the year here, people are trying to get ready for this. And specifically, there was a report that came out around the insurance industry's use of this around, car connected car applications and location data. And one of the things that there's this new sort of report and this thing called Proposition 24 that specifically is trying to prevent these types of companies, car companies, and so on, from using this data in a sort of real time way. And I think one of the key issues is we're seeing a lot of technology and advertising, sort of move into the car. So OnStar's got geolocation data now where they're feeding directly into apps for Domino's or IHOP that we just talked about. People who are likely to buy coffee, and where are they on the road, and let's send them stuff. And so there seems to be a general pushback against, hey, we know who you are, we know where you are, in your car, and sort of closing that loop and presenting offers and so on. And I think it's interesting because even in a lot of other states outside of California, and even here in Canada, the insurance companies are very much have variable rates based on how you drive. Like here in Canada, like at my insurance company, there's an app and they see my driving patterns and things like that, and they're like, oh, you're not driving ridiculous speeds, and you're not like out late at night, and da 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 da. Your insurance premiums will be less than somebody who has different behavior, and so it's based on your performance and so on. And California is basically saying, nope, we're not allowing the use of that type of data even in a non-advertising perspective. So when you start talking about advertising now, I think it becomes a real challenge. And I think it's unfortunate because, and this is just my own opinion about it, I think you should allow this kind of stuff. And I think especially as we're trying to move more towards self-driving vehicles and these types of things, to me that means, look, if I'm not driving the car, I have more time to consume advertising in my vehicle, if I so choose to do so. Right, if I enable that and opt into that type of stuff. So, like to me, that's a perfect opportunity to engage somebody who's, it doesn't need to focus on the road anymore. The car is driving. So, like, yes, give me advertising, tell me what's going on, read me the news, whatever the case might be. That might be the only quiet time I have, to actually take this stuff in. So, I'm kind of on the other side of it, but certainly. The industry, the privacy, laws that are coming into place seem, specifically in California, are not going to allow that. So, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a couple of things to consider. As you mentioned, that being able to utilize this data, I think, is good for the economy. I think it stimulates the economy. It stimulates opportunities to buy from local places, right? Which is obviously good for the state of California. It's good for every state. It's good for the US and every other country, right? I think that's one thing to consider. The other thing that I find is interesting is that they're talking about how potentially, this type of data, it's a concern because that the insurance industry, could potentially use the data to offer unfair rates. Well, typically right now what's happening is that you agree to share your data with the auto insurance company for a discount, and they are tracking your driving. I mean, it's an agreement between the consumer and the actual insurance company. So I don't see why that should be limited by the state if I've agreed to it. And just like you have a driving record that is passed to the insurance company, I mean, they have a risk to mitigate as well, right? Mm-hmm. So I think it's only fair to say it's not unfair driving rates if they are equally impacted across the board, and what's good for you is good for me in terms of, if you meet this threshold of driving, then this is your rate. If you meet this threshold of driving, then this is your rate, right? I think it's pretty straightforward. So it's not something that is based on race, religion, ethnicity. So it's not unfair. It is based on actually your performance. So I don't have a problem with it. And I do think that they need to be careful in how they implement these laws, because it could impact, again, the economy. It could impact technology, self-driving cars, and how we can innovate in the future. So, concerned, but want to keep an eye on it.
Yeah. Well said. All right, that's our show for this week. You've been listening and watching episode 590 of Location Weekly. Thank you, everybody, for your time. As always, if you have feedback, story ideas, reach out to us. We're easily found on all the various social media channels. Give us some likes, some love, whatever you can do. Just one more reminder, again, we would love to have you join us in person October 26th and 27th at Retail Loco in Atlanta. Just go to retaillo.co, retaillo.co, and you can find all the information there. And we'll see you next week, everybody. Have a great week. Enjoy the fall weather. All right. Bye.
Bye.